Welcome to SFJAZZ's Fridays at 5, our concert series, our weekly concert series of shows that remind us, shows for our archives that remind us of the beauty and inspiration and intimacy of being in that hall, listening to live music, inspirational music. And today we've got a truly inspirational show. It's music of Miles Davis done with an Indian twist. With us is Vince Wilburn.
How you doing, Randall?
Hey, Vince. Vince is the nephew of Miles Davis, and he is kind of the brainchild of this project and another one we're going to be showcasing later. Vince has been with us a number of times with both of these projects. They're, a lot of them, all of them entail a number of alumni from Miles's past bands, combined with different musicians as well to do it. And the Miles from India record, which was nominated for a Grammy Award, was co-produced by Vince and Bob Belden. And so, Vince, tell us a little bit about how that whole project came together.
Bob Belden and Yusuf Gandhi, they had an idea, and they contacted the family about a Miles Davis record inspired by the music of India, Indian musicians. And we ran it by the family. We had our meeting, and we thought it would be great, because Uncle Miles always had a fondness for tabla and Indian musicians, enlisting musicians in his band from India. And so when I started talking to Bob Belden and we saw the lineup of all the musicians that were going to appear on the record, we were like, yeah, let's do it. And Dougal and I recorded our tracks out here and back to back, and Dougal was my idol. I called him the Godfather. So, that was fun to do because he was always encouraging and positive,
And this is Ndugu Chancellor you're talking
Ndugu
about.
Chancellor, yes.
The great late drummer here.
Yeah. Who we love.
Great history. And so how did the studio session start to evolve? Once you guys sort of joined in. By the way, Vince is also manages Miles's estate, and so that's where the call came into him and why he's
along with my cousin Aaron and Cheryl, Miles' kids. But you picked this. They sent us. We had a set list of songs, and then each musician who guest starred on the particular track chose the track they wanted to play on, and it was broken down like that with Belden and Yusuf and myself, and it was great. It was amazing, and then we got a chance to play it live.
And how different was live than recording session? And you expanded the personnel a bit when you took it live as well too.
Yeah, live is always it always takes on a life of its own. Anytime you're in the studio and you produce this works, right? But then when you play it live, it always seems to blossom, and because you're playing the music, but you're playing off of the audience, and the reaction of the audience, and that's the fun part,
I can remember a performance. It was at the Palace of Fine Arts, and it was here. I believe Ron Carter played in this edition of it.
Yes.
And it got that's pre SFJAZZ Center, so this has got to be 2012 or 11 or even 2000. What year did the record come out?
I have the award, the plaque upstairs, for nomination. I have to look at it, but the amazing thing was, Randall, we rehearsed at SIR in San Francisco. Uh-huh. And so when all these artists were coming in, that was, it was like an all-star team, but I remember Ron was coming from Japan. So he came in like the last day or right before the show to learn all of this music and play it, and I was just in awe. I was in awe of everybody on the show, and it was fun, It was amazing.
For those listening, SIR is Studio Instrument Rentals, which is was in San Francisco a very important, not just a rental. They did rent instruments for gigs, backline, but it was also an important place for rehearsals. And, it was really the place to be when someone really wanted to do something, up through, starting in the 70s, I believe, is when it first came into existence. So the musicians that came through, Ron rehearsing there, how many other Miles alumni, appeared through this project over the years?
It was Ron, it was Pete Cozy,
Oh,
it was
right.
Dave Liebman, Jack DeJohnette, myself, and Dugu, Adam Holzman.
Mhm.
It was a list of alumni.
Yeah, an amazing, amazing group of people. And Badal Roy, of course.
Badal, oh yes, the master. Yeah.
And the choice of the Indian.
It was fun.
Yeah, the choice of the Indian musicians that intersected with the group, was that Yusuf's picking, Bob's picking? How did those musicians get picked?
That was Yusuf and Bob. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. To intertwine the alumni with the Indian musicians.
Yeah. Great. Vince, you grew up. Miles Davis is your uncle. Who an amazing uncle. You grew up in Chicago. You visited Uncle Miles, many, many summers. What do you remember of that experience, and how did it affect you as a musician? You've got an icon for an uncle, someone who has affected American music perhaps more than anybody. What was that like?
Well,
or was he just Uncle Miles to you?
Yeah, it was like I was too young to really know, the magnitude of a genius. He was Uncle Miles. And the older I got, and when I started listening to records, because we had a vast record collection in Chicago in my parents' home, then I was like, wow. I didn't understand the music, but I was intrigued. And so back and forth on these summer treks until we recorded Man with the Horn in like 1979. But he would come to Chicago and play, and I was like, wow. I would stay backstage and watch them perform from the side of the stage. I wouldn't sit in the audience with my parents, so I had a bird's eye view of everything going on. The communication, the connection with the musicians, and I would always fixate towards the drums. And Tony Williams later told Wallace Roney he knew that I was going to play drums by the way I used to stare at him. Like a superhero, like, when you're a kid, you're so impressionable.
Well, Tony Williams, and we did a show with Fridays at 5 with Cindy Blackman Santana, who also heavily influenced by Tony.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony was actually a board of directors member at SFJAZZ in our early years, for a number of years, just before he passed. And Tony was a superhero on the drums. I mean, I can see as a kid to see, truly a force of nature. What he was doing with the drums was just, no one even touched what was happening there. I can't imagine how exciting it was. I didn't grow up obviously being, a drummer. I dabbled as a bass player for a number of years and for a while. And Tony was my drop dead favorite drummer, to watch, because bass players and drummers have this special thing. That's the instrument I tuned in. When I heard Tony, it just, the world changed for me. So what were you? So how old were you? Can you remember when Tony? It was just one of those things like, wow, I've got to try to figure this one out.
You have to understand, Randall, when Uncle Miles would come to Chicago, I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to witness the drum chair of Tony Williams on the drums. Then Jack DeJohnette changed my life. And then Al Foster just totally, I was like, that's it. That's it. Those three amazing drummers, for a kid that and you're on the side of the stage. You're not in the audience. You can see everything. It doesn't get much better. There was a club called the Plug Nickel in Chicago. I sat close to Jack. I could see Jack really close. My parents took me to the matinees on Sunday. So, I had the bird's eye view. I had the best seat in the house. Tony Williams, Jack DeJohnette, Al Foster.
Unbelievable. And those great recordings that came from a Plug Nickel, lucky to have
Mhm.
to have those. So were there things that that Miles, did he help encourage you to becoming a musician?
He would. They used to have uh, uh, record indie, not indie, but record promotion guys that would work certain parts of the United States. And there was a guy named Granville White who used to we called him Granny, and it was Columbia Records at the time. And Granny used to deliver records to my house. Uh, uh, my uncle would say, "Hey, Granny, take these to my sister's house." So I remember him telling me to check out James Brown, The Big Payback, and he sent me Sly, anything Sly recorded, and the immortal Otis Redding, because he wanted me to listen to Al Jackson, the sax drum. And he said, listen, he said, play those records back and forth, learn those. He loved Buddy Miles. He loved the Fatback. He loved, the Clyde and Javo from James Brown, and he loved Al Jackson.
Buddy lived here in the Bay Area, and he was really just great. I was fortunate to meet him a couple of times, and just a giant. He was a big guy too, but he was a giant of the drums. So really,
yeah. I mean, not only did he want me to listen to his records, but those drummers he wanted me to really, really hone in on, like really check out. So glad he did.
Yeah. All right. So jump back here to Miles from India. Anything that you think, capturing the music itself, is there something that you felt, some kind of alchemy that happened in combining, these two things that, that were an epiphany for you as you started playing this music and digging into it? Did it open, did it open your ears to Indian music more? Did you find things in the music that you hadn't discovered previously?
It opened my music. It opened my ears and my mind and my heart to the Indian musicians that were, in the band. As we rehearsed and then performed the concert, how sensitive and how loving they were, and how honest they were, and how much they loved Miles, And then I started having flashbacks. I started thinking about On the Corner and all those records that Uncle Miles infused Indian musicians. And I always think about Badal, So when we would rehearse, and after rehearsals, we would talk about the music and talk about, I would share with the musicians how I was influenced by Indian music, and they would share how they were influenced by Uncle Miles, So you know what I mean? This is before we played the concert.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting how music, touches the world.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you can hear it in the music, and it is the Indian music, as you say, has a bit of a delicacy to it.
Yes.
And this is definitely a funkier kind of groove thing happening here. Not that can't happen in Indian music, but not quite.
No, and it did, because we had Ndugu and I on drums, and we did, when we would play. I don't know if the camera captured it. Sometimes when Ndugu would look at me, that smile, I'll always cherish the smile he had, because he knew we were getting in it. You know what I mean? And who's funkier than Ndugu Chancellor? So the Indian music did have a lot of funk in it too.
Yeah,
which is incredible.
Well, this idea again of absorbing music. You mentioned Badal again, who also worked with Ornette Coleman, who had that similar quality. Wherever he went, he heard things. He was notorious for hearing, someone playing, Chinese violin on the subway, a street musician, and inviting them home to jam. And this idea of there's music and there's something to be discovered everywhere, and it's a beautiful quality. Anyways, we're going to hear a little bit of this concert, and we're all going to absorb all this. And just thanks so much for bringing this music to us. Thanks so much for being here. I can't tell you how great it is to see you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing this. So
thanks for having us, Randall. Love you.